Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If anyone in the chat can hear me, just push one. All right, we got a confirmation in the chat. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 345, economics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Also, as a FYI, we do not give out financial advice here. If you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. We don't give out financial advice here. There's a docket in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in the conversation and contribute, there'll be a link in the chat for you to get on the panel. Just make sure when you are in the waiting room, you raise your hand so one of us can acknowledge you. We can bring you onto the panel. All right, man, let me get to this first article. First item on the docket is from the national.ae. Get off the beach before a recession tidal wave hits. Last week, a well-researched article in this newspaper outlined the case for passive versus active funds for long-term investors invested in securing their financial independence. However, this could be a case of missing the wood for the trees. Yes, there are merits to low-cost exchange-traded funds in accumulating money over a long period of time. Simply put, more is invested because less is spent on fees, and this gradually adds up. But the trigger question remains: should you really be in stock markets at all? This particularly applies in the U.S. where market capitalization as a percentage of GDP is at an all-time high. That's Warren Buffett's favorite indicator of overevaluation. Anything over 100% means overvaluation. Today, this indicator stands at a gobsmacking 138%. Another sure sign of a market topping out is somebody in a huff pulling their money out of Mr. Buffett's holding company Berkshire Hathaway and complaining that the world's greatest investor is not buying anything. Step forward, David Rolfe, a longtime shareholder and chief investment officer at the otherwise obscure Wedgwood Partners, who did just that last week. He could, of course, be a better judge than the Sega of Omaha or the Sage of Omaha. Still, is it wise to be standing on the beach as a tidal wave approaches, hoping for a last dip? More seriously, selling out when an asset is very highly valued and then buying it back later or something else entirely at a great price is a classic formula for boosting your net worth. Try to think of cash itself as an investment asset for a short period. It may only carry a very low interest rate or zero, but its nominal value will not change in a storm. Although you must also be wary about holding an overvalued currency for too long. Professional investors tend to give a greater weighing of treasury bonds or precious metals as a cash equivalent in such circumstances. These are available conveniently for individual investors as ETF products such as TLT, GLD, and SOV, for example. Basically, you are trying to park your money in a safe haven while the financial storm passes. Then you can emerge from hiding and pick up the bargains. Everything in the financial markets is cyclical, though not the extent that timing is like clockwork. That said, the last major financial crisis started in October 2008. Another does seem way overdue by normal cyclical calculations. At the very least, it would seem prudent to increase the weigh-in of these safe haven assets in your portfolio. A client survey by UBS Asset Management reported that millionaires were holding a third of their wealth in cash this spring. Perhaps they would have been better served by gold, as the column suggests. This column suggested in May. Gold prices have been on a tear since the end of May, up $270 an ounce before consolidating around the $1,500 mark. Some analysts predict a further pullback, perhaps alongside stock market correction to $1,425 up to $1,460 before a much bigger rise. It is not just the U.S. stock markets are looking frothy compared to Europe and Asia. Recession warning alarms are going off across the statistical spectrum, from factory orders to an inversion of the yield curve, quite apart from the Chinese trade war and Brexit morass. Any Wall Street correction will also collapse other global financial markets in its wake. Such is the interdependence of world economy these days. Bond markets usually benefit immediately from an influx of cash in a big share sell-off. But this can be short-lived if the Federal Reserve slashes interest rates to boost liquidity in the financial system. So for the smaller investor, cash is normally king in a recession. If you have it, then assets are immediately available for unmissable prices. Draw up a shopping list of shares you would like to own for what you consider a good price while sitting out the crisis. You could do exactly the same with ETFs, as they will sink in value too and offer no additional downside to protection to shares. Your risk might be better spread than the individual stocks, but you will still have the losers in your portfolio. Another tip would be to move into different investment class altogether. Bear stock markets can last for many years. An asset class that was previously neglected could give much quicker and better results. UAE investors who pivoted from global stocks in mid 2008 to buy gold shares, local bonds, or property did spectacularly well within a couple of years. Although you can't rely too much on history repeating itself, global stocks might also not bounce back as quickly this time around. So maybe we should focus on the last piece, that local bonds or property did spectacularly well within a couple years, although you can't rely too much on history repeating itself. So holding bonds, treasury bonds are not bad. And property as a form of asset, vacant lots, commercial real estate, those things turn dividends at some point, either now or later. So you can't really go wrong here. Holding cash, bonds, and real estate is going to pay dividends here. So that's what the article is pointing to. Let's see if anybody's trying to get on the panel. Hey, what's going on, Go?
What's going on, Mike? What's going on, baby?
Chilling, man, chilling.
All right, man. Who we got going on over here, man? What's going down?
Get off the beach if there's a tidal wave that's about to come. So that's what the first article is about. Basically, holding on to cash is not a bad idea at this point.
Yep.
Um,
Totally agree.
yep. Treasury bonds, and real estate or property should be in your portfolio out of the three.
Absolutely correct.
Cash,
And,
bonds, and property.
Exactly correct, and that's exactly the game I'm playing, and that's where we've got to go. Also, buy raw land for some people. Buy raw land, great investments. Stuff gets a little tight, you can build on it later on. A lot of good ideas with that. Raw land is also a good investment. With respect to real estate, even though it's undeveloped, raw land in a decent area is a good thing to have.
Yep. All right, this next one is from CNN.com. This was sent in by DE and Jack Charles. There are more wealthy Chinese than Americans for the first time. For the first time, there are more rich Chinese than Americans in the top 10%. A new report from Credit Suisse shows that wealth in China is ticking up, and the country now accounts for 100 million of the richest 10% people in the world. There are 99 million Americans in the same category. The United States still has more millionaires, 18.6 million, or 40% of the world's total, versus 4.4 million in China. It's also adding to the millionaire count at a faster clip. The report credits low interest rates and Republican tax cuts for the country's 11th consecutive year of rising wealth. The average American is also still much richer than their Chinese counterparts, with U.S. wealth per adult at $432,365 compared with $58,544 in China. But China holds claim to a growing piece of the pie, replacing Europe as the principal engine of global wealth growth. That's in spite of a trade war that's weighing on the nation's economy. Trade conditions and debt levels are causing concern, but signs for the coming years and otherwise fairly positive. Credit Suisse observed in its annual global wealth report. The report highlights the extent to which global wealth is concentrated at the very top. The bottom 50% of adults account for less than 1% of total wealth, while the top 10% owns 82%. The top 1% alone owns almost half of all global assets, according to Credit Suisse. The threshold to make it into the top 10% globally is roughly $109,400 in net assets. To be in the top 1%, you need just above $936,400 in assets. Still, the picture of wealth inequality since the 2008 financial crisis, is complicated. While artificially low interest rates and bond buying programs from central banks led to a boom in asset prices, raising the share of the top 1% of wealth holders, inequality continued to decline for those below that segment, Credit Suisse notes. The share held by the bottom 90% now accounts for 18% of global wealth, up from 11% in 2000. Since 2016, the share held by the top 1% has broadly eased back per the bank. While it's too early to say that wealth inequality is now in a downward phase, the prevalence evidence suggests that 2016 may have been the peak for the foreseeable future, the report's author writes. Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, China, I mean, Chinese Americans and Chinese citizens have intertwined their income and their economies together to create this sort of wealth. Most Americans, and especially ADOS, don't really think on this level. So it's not uncommon that I work with Chinese people who send money back to their native land, and increase their wealth that way as well. Because their dollar stretches, the US dollar stretches a lot further in China than the yuan would stretch in the United States. So they're playing the game a little bit better at it from a different angle.
Absolutely correct. Mike, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You heard dead silence. Oh, yeah. That's absolutely correct. They're playing. They're doing a better job at this capitalism game than we are currently. I mean, even though per capita we might be wealthy, they're up and coming. And I know a lot of people want to call them a communist country and all that. You have to now take a look at what do those labels really mean. But they are going to be the world's, or I'm not going to say the world's top economic power. Some people may have some issues with that, but they certainly are looking to take that position sooner rather than late.
Yeah, let me get to this next article from foxbusiness.com. Millennial millionaire who retired at 30 explains the sacrifices he made to get there. When he achieved financial independence at the age of 30 in 2015, Grant Sabatier knew his story was extreme. The now 34-year-old had saved more than $1 million in just 5 years after starting with a balance of $2.26 in his bank account. I'm an outlier, Sabatier told Fox Business. I am the exception to the rule. Sabatier is a follower of the FIRE movement, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. However, he still works and makes money by writing financial advice for his blog, Millennial Money, and through speaking engagements and sales of his book, Financial Freedom. I think the traditional concept is really outdated, and I think within the next 10 years, we won't even talk about it the same way that we talk about it now. Sabatier said, all it means for me is once I became financially independent at 30, I started powering off all those things that in my life that I didn't enjoy doing, and started focusing my life around things that I really wanted to do. I still work really hard, but it's mission driven work as opposed to making money work, he added. Most importantly, Sabatier gets to do things that makes his life richer, but not in the financial sense. Ultimately, money only matters if it helps you live a life you love, Sabatier said. Are you designing your life in a way that your work and your money is supporting that? And are you enjoying your life? That's the most important thing. It's not about 1 million, it's not about the $1 million or when can you traditionally retire. However, this mindset is around money, around money wasn't how Sabatier viewed financial independence when he got started in 2010. That year, he had moved back in with his parents after he had been fired from his job. He said he was really ashamed because his parents had invested so much in him and he felt like he had let them and himself down. So he decided to set the extremely arbitrary goal of saving $1 million as quickly as he could, which he realized about 2.5 years in would be about enough to live on for the rest of his life. Oh no, man. At that point, he decided he wanted to save the $1 million within 5 years. But that turned into the only thing he did for the next 2 years, 2.5 years. I just stopped doing everything, he said. All I was doing was making money and saving money. And I was just singularly focused on that goal. However, that came at its own cost. During those few years, he said he almost broke up with his girlfriend, who is now his wife. He didn't take good care of his health, gaining 50 pounds, and he lost several friendships along the way too. Even though he was excited about hitting his goal, he admitted he had made a lot more sacrifices than in hindsight I probably would have made. However, the experience was a net positive overall because now he can do whatever he wants. But certainly I should have just chilled out a bit, he said. I realized somewhat later on that it wasn't about the $1 million or about becoming financially independent. What I was really seeking was just more peace in my life and more space and time and the ability to take a deep breath, Sabatier explained. I also didn't realize that so much of that freedom that I was craving, I already had access to so much early on. Most of the things that make me happiest in life are pretty inexpensive or even free, he added. And so once I started designing my life around how to have more time to do those, I realized that I needed a lot less money than I thought I ever thought I would. So it sounds to me like this guy's living the van life. And the Goan said, the Goan always talks about this, keep your savings high and your overhead low. So
Keep your overhead low when your savings high. You see, that's how you get ahead of the game. I did it myself after, I had to, break up with my marriage, had to give up a house and everything else like that. Got a fucking apartment, cheap apartment upstate, very cheap apartment. It wasn't the kind of digs I was used to doing. And it was a small place, small, but it still had a little back, terrace and all. But every dime that I made, I banked. And the only thing I did was put everything else in the bank, had enough for my basic expenses, banked every dime. I had some brothers who were really cool, so I had some big commissions come through. And I had a huge commission that really set me off, and it was pretty big, about 50 grand. I was like, oh man, I really needed that. I put all that money away. Then I had another $40,000 commission on a big placement. And what I did was I sat down on that, and that was my living expense money. I lived off of that. So I basically, for that whole year, that one commission, I lived off about $40,000 a year. I had a girlfriend, I was able to travel a little bit, but I wasn't making any big digs. People saw what I was doing. They saw what I was doing. So people had kind of, been helpful with me with respect to that. So I wasn't getting juiced. That wasn't happening, and anything else like that. And I just started banking money, and my overhead was low and my savings was high. And I lived that myself as a grown ass man. So I'm sitting there looking at kids who were young, coming up, 21, 22 years old. You do that. This guy, I think he could have handled his game a little bit better. He gained a lot of weight. He wasn't in the gym, wasn't doing certain kind of thing.
And get his body right.
he wouldn't get his body right. In fact, his body got some blight. But what happened was, had he just balanced his game out a little bit better, I think he could have managed that experience better. But the overall concept of what this kid did was absolutely what you have to do. Move back in with your folks, save your dough. When you launch, you're made. And that's the game. That's the game. I know most people can't get with it. They got to have the big car, and they got to have this, and they got to floss for the babes, because when you're 20, 21, and in your early 30s, you're a slugger. You're out here trying to bang as much ass as you can and run around and be as sexy as possible. I understand all that. But if you have the maturity to do that, you're going to get way ahead of the game. You're going to get way ahead of the game. And it's always something that you're going to do, because it's going to put you in a higher cash position. It does take a certain amount of discipline. Some people have a better understanding of that than most. If he's living the van life with a couple $1 million in the bank, who cares? You know what I'm saying? He's rolling. So he can live the van life, because now he can afford. Now, literally, he can afford to.
Oh, he needs a hot rag, man. He's good.
He got a hot rag. He's straight. And trust me, there'd be plenty of others, if they know he's rolling like that, that will give him a hot rag and roll with him as well.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one from CNBC.com. Backyard bungalows are becoming big business for homeowners and builders. they are not just she sheds or he sheds or granny pods or tiny homes. The latest housing trend in the backyard is now front and center for a new breed of home builder and landlord. Second homes, formerly called accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are cropping up in the back and side yards across America, acting as either rental units or additional space for aging parents and still nested adult children. Interesting. Growth in the sector has been fueled by changes to the local and state zoning rules. Some municipalities are struggling with a lack of affordable housing and see these additional units as one remedy. In 2010, Portland, Oregon waived impact fees for ADUs, making them significantly less expensive. As a result, the number of ADUs permits jumped from 86 in 2010 to 660 in 2018, according to a count by accessorydwelling.org. In California, when a 2017 state law forced cities to relax ADU regulations, permits jumped even more dramatically. And that all translates into big growth for ADU builders, like prefab ADUs based in the California Bay Area. It built and installed about 100 ADUs this year, but expects to expand to that to at least 1,500 next year. Damn. Of our focus is basically to expand the market and really drive the number of ADU installations across the Bay Area and California up dramatically, said Steve Vallejos, CEO of Prefab ADU, who admits that the market is really just starting to find its way, especially when it comes to financing. ADU is still really, for the most part, an affluent homeowner product, meaning you have to have cash on hand to take this on. He added, noting that financing is a concern for the larger homeowner universe. Vallejo said injuries from potential clients are evenly split between those looking to address housing for family members and those seeking rental income. Pricing at prefab depends on the size of the unit, of course, but the most popular model, a 288 square foot home, will run about $105,000 installed. What? Rental income was the impetus for Lisa and Chris Pachula. They built a charming ADU in the side yard of the Washington D.C. of their Washington D.C. home and are now renting it on a monthly basis. We are looking for a professional, someone that's coming to and from DC, perhaps to rent short term, said Chris. And that also helps because if they are a person that's commuting to DC for work, they are not here all the time. So that's kind of a side benefit. The Pachulas also have their eye on even bigger financial return in retirement. We lived in it for 10 months while we renovated our main house, and we loved it, said Lisa, an interior designer with Lily May Design. I definitely can't see us hanging out there, renting and or retiring and traveling, and then renting the main house. Interesting. Washington, D.C. also relaxed building codes on ADUs, allowing the Pachulas to build a second floor on the one bedroom, one bathroom home. But as with all real estate, zoning regulations are local, and that is one of the greatest roadblocks for companies like Prefab ADU. It's addressing financing, it's addressing standardizing products within cities, and then also it's creating partner relationships with contractors, architects, and even other builders, said Vallejos. There are many different scenarios that people look into based on income, lot size, different zoning rules. So we build ADUs that start at around 150 square feet, going up to 1,200 square feet. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but we talked about this some weeks ago. Someone came up with the idea of, creating homes out of dumpsters, and that's where Black men can go live at. And so this is not that far of a stretch that this is where society is going to. People living out of vans, living out of dumpsters, living out of these bungalows in these people's backyards. I don't know. This is I don't know if I really want to go out like that, man. I know a cheap apartment is one thing, but man, I don't know if I want to live in a dumpster.
That living in dumpsters and all. I mean, you can find cheap apartments being for a while, but this kind of guerrilla type, living style and just jumping anywhere and just hanging out anywhere. I mean, this is a millennial thing. Millennials are doing this kind of shit. And I see people living in 5 and 6 in an apartment. And my brother, he owns a property in Westchester and Greenberg, where he's got a house, and it's got 4 bedrooms. And one of the bedrooms, they're 4 millennials living in there. 4. They keep the place neat, so you got to keep the place neat. But 4 kids living in there, man. Like head to toe. I'm like, well, suppose they want to hang out with a chicken or something like that. What are you gonna do? I mean, you can't bring them in. Everybody watch you, get live or whatever. So they're gonna have to, and hopefully that girl is not living like a, guerrilla lifestyle or whatever they call it. It's just, they are taking this thing on heavy. Like I said, I saw some chick drive around in a car. And doing telemarketing and living in a ride. And I said, give her a hot rag and let her drive on. She's good. I mean, you got this going on. I mean, this is going on a lot these days, and people seem to somehow be comfortable with it. I think it's just a different ethic that some of these kids are coming up with. And I heard somebody mention before that maybe this was something that this is a lifestyle that they're trying to push on people now. And
yeah, being a bum.
Maybe that's the case, but that's what I'm saying. This dumpster stuff and all that, this may actually become an idea that people might want to embrace. As crazy as it may sound.
Yeah, maybe not in 2019, but maybe like in 2040, you see cats like, yo, I'm going home, and just like pull up on the side of the street and pull up in a dumpster, man. It's crazy.
I don't want to laugh, but if this is what they're talking about, the homeless problem, and you see these people in the home, you see the homeless laying up, in downtown LA, and there they are. They're basically laid up to what akin is to a dumpster, because they're laying next to them. So that's what's going on. Rats are their friends and all this kind of crap. I was listening to this one story where a guy had guy was basically living by a dumpster. They wanted to remove him. The guy was feeding the rats. The rats were his guard dogs. They were guarding his shit. So when people came in, the rats attacked them. They didn't attack him, because when he came in there, they were good. They attacked the people trying to move him.
What is he, like the Rat King?
Fucking Willard, man. I remember that shit.
Like Splinter.
Willard, tear him up and shit. Tear him up. I mean, seriously. I mean, so I don't know what to say about some of this. It's crazy.
Yeah. What's going on, Ty City?
What's up, bro?
Show him.
Ty City, what's up, baby?
What's up, dog?
You, man, what's going on?
Hey, chilling, man. Hey, you know what? Y'all heard of Dream Case?
Dream Case?
Dog, Dream Case. That's the new wave. It's a mattress that they made and designed for the Tesla. It's designed to like integrate into the Tesla. It's a whole mattress, bro. It's crazy.
Wow. So people can live out of their Tesla.
Yeah, I think they actually collab with Tesla to design and build it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just some different stuff out here, man. So people are rolling a lot different here today. folks are rolling out here.
They're rolling way different.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh, they rolling with a whole different Steve, fam. It's a whole different Stilo. It is unfamiliar to myself. I mean, living in a small apartment and saving your dough, that's kind of how we all kind of looked at how to kind of get ahead. You don't have to keep your overhead low. But living in vans and living in cars with the hot rag and all that kind of crap, I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let me get to this next article.
Yeah.
All right, this one is from a wealthofcommonsense.com. Will millennials get destroyed during the next recession? Ann Lowry at the Atlantic is worried about millennials during the next recession. She says the next recession will destroy millennials. Many millennials caught a bad break a combination of a once in a generation recession, a poor job market, stagnant wages, and student loans set my generation back financially. But I'm going to take the other side of this argument. What if maybe, just maybe, millennials won't be the generation that gets crushed during the next recession? Here are some thoughts. There are reasons millennials have a lower rate of home ownership. Roughly 6 out of 10 millennials have never been married. In 1965, the average woman was married by 21 and the average man by age 23. Today, those numbers are more like 27 and 30, respectively. So it makes sense millennials would have a lower rate of home ownership at this stage in life than previous generations. Adulting for many young people has gotten put on the back burner, and I don't really blame them. Millennials are more highly educated. A big reason young people are getting married later in life is that they are better educated than previous generations. More young people going to school for longer means more people that put off adult responsibilities. Let me see. This chart here shows that as young adults, millennials more educated than previous generations. So compared to the silent generation, the boomer generation, Gen X and millennials. Yeah, I can see this. I can see the stark differences here of percentage of those ages 21 to 36 who have completed at least a bachelor's degree by gender. So more guys and more men in the millennial class actually completed more degrees percentage wise than Gen X's and boomers. Student loans aren't much fun, but over the long term, this should be a good trade-off for this group. So unemployment rate by educational level. Hey, Nicole, you might have to mute yourself, bro. So educational level shows that 5.3% less than a high school degree for unemployment rate, and for college or greater 2.1%. So the more education you have, the least likely you are to be unemployed. Average annual earnings by highest degree earned. So an advanced degree sees 31,000 a 31K increase over someone with just a bachelor's degree, and a person with a bachelor's degree earns at least 30K more than a person with just a high school diploma. So yeah, it would have been nice for more young people to be in a position to buy a house or stocks when they went on sale in 2008. But the fact that millennials don't have as many financial assets means they won't feel as much pain when stocks and housing prices do drop the next time around. Maybe they'll actually be more prepared the next time a downturn hits. Wouldn't the next recession be more painful for those who hold most of the financial assets? They are the ones who will experience the biggest losses once they've seen the biggest gains. And oh, by the way, many millennials should be making more money now that they have these educations under their belts. Maybe some of them can actually take advantage of the lower prices this time around. The millennial value proposition has changed. People like to think millennials are all 25 years old, but we're actually growing up. I was born in 1981, technically making me a millennial, but I'm basically in no man's land. Millennials will be entering their 40s in the 2020s. We have more education and experience now than we did going into the last recession. Who will be the first to go in a downsizing? The up and coming young person with a smaller salary, or the older person with a bloated salary who has been there forever? These decisions will be much more difficult the next time around. The next recession won't be like the last. The availability heuristic is the idea that our brains rely on immediate examples that are easy to recall when making arguments. So everyone assumes that the next recession will be the same kick in the pants as the last one. Things are much different now. Not every recession will push the financial world to the precipice. So using the Great Recession as your baseline for how things will play out during the next downturn is a faulty starting point. The next recession is far more likely to be different than the last one than the same. Not everyone will be impacted the same way. Yeah, I'm not going to read this whole thing. But I agree with the sentiment that millennials will not see the same impact that they this time around that they saw last time around. If you kept your savings high and your overhead low, since 2008, you should be fine. But if you're ADOS millennial, there may be a difference here because predominantly Black neighborhoods have what they call a checks cash in their Western Union or financial services that are non-banked. These institutions and services exist because the residents and population cannot keep or open a bank account for whatever reason. They either don't have enough funds to put into a bank or they cannot afford to maintain the balance. And so these services exist because they are living paycheck to paycheck. So there's a difference in dynamic when you start to add a racial lens to it. Anybody else have anything you want to add to this?
No, I think some of these I kind of disagree with it because I think that the first thing that's gonna get hit is the retail space, and I think those type of jobs gonna be the first thing that get the axe.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And most people, most millennials, they don't want to take anything like a house or any kind of asset like that long term because you might have to move to another city to get a job.
Right. All right, this next one is from CBC.com. Millennials are keeping the US out of recession market bull, Tony Dwyer says. Millennials are playing a vital role in Tony Dwyer's bullish case for stocks. The Canaccord Genuity chief market strategist believes the demographics' robust spending is lowering recession risk. It's a really big deal, he told CNBC's Trading Nation on Monday. The peak birth rate in the millennials is almost as big as the peak birth year of the baby boom generation. It puts the group at an age when many of them are embarking on the next chapter of their lives, according to Dwyer. That's 1990. They are turning 30. They've had 10 years to be in the workforce. They've had 10 years to build a credit score. They've had 10 years to meet a significant other and get prepared to build a house or build a household, he said. We're seeing this behavior show up in this millennial demographic, which should help buffer the economy from a more significant slowdown. Excuse me. If a household is fully employed, they have income, and they can go to the bank and get a home equity line of credit or credit card debt or whatever a bank is willing to lend them. You have some pretty consistent spending behavior as we've seen over the past 10 years, Dwyer said. He suggests a strong jobs market with a historically low 3.5% unemployment rate is helping to create and accommodate an environment that's the supporting consumer economy. The only way this works is if they are unemployed, whereas full employment with wages going up. Oh my God, what the fuck? If a household is fully employed, they have an income and they can go to the bank and get a home equity line of credit or a credit card debt or whatever a bank is willing to lend them. You have some pretty consistent spending behavior as we've seen over the past 10 years. Dwyer said he suggests a strong jobs market with a historically low 3.5% unemployment rate is helping to create and accommodate an environment that's supporting the consumer economy. The only way this works is if they are employed, we're at full employment with wages going up and have access to debt via bank lending or other financial institutions lending. He said this is still wide open. Dwyer, whose S&P 500 target is 3,350 by the end of the 2020, has been particularly bullish on consumer discretionary stocks. The only thing that really matters in terms of consumer spending's pattern is how much money is available and do you have a job, said Dwyer, who believes stocks are on the cusp of another historic run before the next recession does finally hit. Yeah, millennials do spend a lot of money. They do buy a lot of frivolous things. They use Uber, they use Lyft, they're ordering out with Grubhub and Uber Eats and stuff like that. They do a lot of consumer spending, but not a lot of investing. They also get vehicles they can't afford to pay for, and then they get those things repoed. So they do contribute to the economy in that way.
Yep.
I've seen some millennials who very responsible in how they're handling their money. They're keeping their overhead low, man. They're not spending a lot. So I see some millennials who are running around who've got cash. Look at my nephew. My son, he rolls back and forth with me, so he's saving all of his bread. See some guys who are thinking. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. I do kind of like what I see out of some of these millennials. Even though a lot of them are, big crybabies. Some of them are. They walk around crying all the time, but a lot of them are saving bread and using their brains. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I see. Just some are wild and some are actually using their brains, and the ones who are using their brains are pretty sharp.
Yeah. Let me get to this next article from Axios. Exclusive. The cities see signs of recession on the horizon. Year-over-year change in sales, income, and property tax receipts. Almost 2 in 3 finance officers in large cities are predicting a recession as soon as 2020, according to a new report from the National League of Cities, as weakening major economic indicators and shrinking revenue sources put pressure on municipal budgets. Why it matters. One of the first signs of changing economic conditions can be seen in the city collections. For the first time in 7 years, generally seen as recovery phase since the Great Recession, cities expect revenues to decline as they close the books on the 2019 fiscal year. The threat level. The impact of changing economic conditions tends to be felt by cities sooner than at the national level. Since fiscal reporting happens on a yearly basis, there is often a lag of about 18 to 24 months for economic changes to show up on city ledgers. That means that the downward trend cities are now seeing likely reflect a broader economic slowdown that's already started. What's happening? The annual city fiscal conditions report, which will be released on Monday, analyzed the responses from financial officers in 554 cities of varying sizes, but all the populations greater than 10,000. The chart reflects above reflects data from 451 cities, since not all cities collect property sales and income tax. This is true. Cities revenue growth stalled in the 2018 fiscal year, but this year's continued drop indicates mounting pressure on city budgets. But at the same time, expenditures grew by 1.8% in 2018. City officials predict they'll grow again to 2.3% in 2019, thanks to climbing costs associated with infrastructure, public safety, and spending on pension costs. Finance officers from large cities and larger mid-sized cities are more likely than those from smaller and mid-sized cities to expect a recession in the next 2 years. A few factors may be driving this, per Christiana McFarland, research director for the National Leagues of Cities. Big cities are seeing a wider gap between revenue growth and spending growth than smaller cities. Business investment in 2019 is also declining, which tends to affect bigger cities first. And housing market growth is leveling off in most places and even starting to slump in previously hot markets like San Francisco and Seattle. While larger cities may be nearing the end of this cycle of economic expansion, smaller cities may still have a bit more room to grow. The Midwest is bearing the brunt of declining conditions, the report found. Overall, general fund revenues in Midwestern cities dipped by 4.4% in fiscal year 2018, mostly driven by steep revenue drops in the region's big cities. Chicago, for example, recorded an 11.7% revenue decline. Across the South, West, and Northeast, municipalities of all sizes showed some growth in general fund revenues, albeit slower growth than previous years. The bottom line, peaks and valleys in property sales and income tax collections tend to balance each other out over that time. The fact that all three revenue sources are trending downward simultaneously, combined with the growing gap between city revenues and expenditures, suggests an economic downturn may be on the horizon. Places like New York are high growth areas. New York City, I'm referring to. You got millions of people in such a small space that have no other choice but to spend their money there. They cannot leave New York, go to New Jersey and get something cheaper and then drive right back. It doesn't work like that. So they are always going to see growth despite a global economic downturn. You have to spend money when you live in a high volume, high traffic city, culture capital like New York City. But in places like Providence, Rhode Island, you're screwed. If you're a fiduciary manager or some kind of city planner or something like that, you're screwed. Anyone else have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, when you say culture capital, man, it reminded me of something I was watching. This guy pretty much said like he was just talking like I don't need a car. And that concept is just so foreign to me, man, being down here in the South. And I look at stuff like that, like you not making it and you don't have to pay car insurance, you don't got to put gas, you ain't got to pay you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Ty.
No, I was just saying that I looked at that as being like you had an advantage, but then you got so much competition with the workforce and trying to make it.
Yeah, but cost of living is a little bit different, right? So even though you don't own a car, for me, when I catch the train and a bus, man, that can cost me $300 a month, if not $500 a month, depending on where I'm trying to go within the city. My train pass alone cost me $300 a month. A bus pass would actually cost me even more in combination.
Is that expensive?
Yeah, it depends on what zone you live in, Nagon. So we have about 5 zones, including Providence, Rhode Island is the last zone. I think that's like zone 8 or something like that. So from Boston to Providence. But I live in zone 1, but there's other people who live beyond, zone 3, zone 4, man. They're paying out the wazoo, man. So it can cost you a lot, man. It can cost you a lot.
Well, in New York City, it's a lot cheaper, man. You can get around pretty cheap. You can get around, you can get around pretty cheap in Manhattan. I mean, you can get around cheaply. So, wow, because if you live in Manhattan, if you actually live like in the Bronx, place that you actually having a car, you don't need a car. It's like I don't like driving into the city. Like I have to go in the city first thing in the morning. I got to be there by 11. I think I'm just gonna jump on the cars, on the Metro North and just bop down there, come right back.
How much is the trip down there? $10?
To go round trip off peak, you're paying about $15.
Okay.
Okay, paying about $15, and then to get on the if you have a train, that's you get on 225, and that can take you here to the very end of the island. So it's not really that much. I mean, fill up my tank and I put gas in the tank. That's that's $45. So it depends on it. Because I already have my train tickets, and I have my card pretty much. His Metro card is pretty much filled up. So I can just roll. It's not really, as time it actually becomes cheaper. I don't have to spend money on gas and these other kind of things. Not that it's a super huge deal, but it's fairly inexpensive. It's fairly inexpensive to kind of get around. If you're taking cabs and everything else like that, that costs more money. But if you're just jumping on the bus, or you're using the Metro North, which travels right up into Westchester all the way through. It's actually and at Scarsdale Station right to 125th Street. That's 20 minutes down, and and that's round trip. It's like $15, so it's like $7 there and $7.50 back. So it's not so bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you live down in Texas, man, you need a car to get from point A to point B.
Yeah. Like when I was living upstate, when I was living in Highland Mills in that area. I had to drive, so you could get around without it. There was buses and stuff you could take, but it was definitely more inconvenient. The car was definitely, houses were a lot more spread out, and it was a lot, it was a lot cheaper you were inconvenienced by not having a car. So I actually understand that. But Manhattan is different. Living expenses are heavy, traveling expenses are not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, in Boston, you can get from point A to point B by walking if you have enough time. Especially if it's the summertime, you can walk to any part of the city within an hour if you take the right routes. But now you have these shared bikes, man. These bicycles, man, that are on racks in most neighborhoods. You can hop on one of those for like $1.50 and get to your next destination within 20 minutes, man. Under the impression that you don't get hit by a vehicle, because there are some yo-yos out there. But if you're in Texas, man, you're kind of screwed. You need a car, man, and I don't know, man. That's not something. That's not something you can really exit out. I know Dallas has a transit system, and Houston has a transit system, but I don't know how robust it is.
Yeah. Texas, you're gonna need a car. Yeah, that's pretty spread out space. Yeah, you definitely need it.
Yeah, you don't need a Datsun though.
Relax.
Y'all, hey, Mike, y'all don't have like no monthly plan for like y'all transit system up there?
That is a monthly plan.
Oh, that is 500?
No, well, if you live in the last zone, yeah. If you live in certain zones, the more further out you live, the more expensive it's going to be. If you're coming from Providence, you can use Amtrak too. Amtrak will, my understanding, is probably cheaper than the MBTA, which is the Massachusetts Bay Transport Authority.
Oh, okay. I know the transit down here in Atlanta or MARTA, it's like $100 a month for all the trains and the buses.
Yeah, but you got to deal with Soldier Girl down there, so.
Man. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, but you know what? We we got what's called DART down here, and man,
Dodge Dart.
Yeah, like Dodge Dart, but you know what? they subsidize it. So
really?
like, yeah, man, like it's kind of it get kind of hood, man.
Wow.
On some of those routes get kind of hood, man.
Why is that?
Well, because they subsidize it. Like if you get food stamps, they give you like incentives to for public transportation.
Hmm. Crazy. Yeah, I know there's an article. We'll probably cover it on Monday or maybe another day. But they're talking about giving away um passes in order, train passes, bus passes for free to get people to give up their cars. So this is on the docket, man. They're really thinking about
Wait,
this.
what? Wow.
Yeah, they're thinking about giving it away for free.
Wow.
So if you give up your car, well, they'll give you a pass if you give up your car, or under the guise that you would give up your car.
Shit.
I don't see that working, especially for people with children.
Right.
In which
And
way? I mean,
especially if their
I'm not putting.
especially if their job is out the way where there's no transit out there. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how.
Well, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to give up your car and take the bus, or they're going to take it from you and crush it.
See, Mike, you ain't even have to go nowhere near that, man.
Why? That's what the market
Take
is
their
doing, man.
cars and crush it.
Yeah, man, that's what they're going to do.
I
If your
think it's
car,
only for the.
well, if your car is not a vintage car, see, I don't know how it works in other places, but here you get a vintage VIN number, or a vintage plaque. You get a vintage registration and plaque. So if your car is vintage, it can only do 2,500 miles a year. If your car is putting out a certain amount of CO2, they're talking about taking those vehicles off the road altogether, just crushing them.
Well, see, California got it to where it's a set year. It's not even by the age. They like here in Texas, we got something like that, but it's like the 25-year rule, and your car only get a safety inspection. They don't do emissions testing if it's 25 or older. But in California, they don't care about what kind of car it was or nothing like that. If it don't meet the date, it just don't meet that date.
What happens?
You just can't register that car anymore.
Wow.
It's gotta be smog tested at today's requirements.
So then you would have to
Wow.
Yep.
you would have to go to another state and register the vehicle and then bring it back.
There's a lot of good deals in California for certain cars at a certain year. They go cheap at the auctions because nobody wants them. They can't register. It won't pass smog.
Yeah, California sucks. I would never live there.
Me either.
Hell nah.
All right, let me go to this one. This one is from the Visual Capitalist Generation Rent, how millennials are fueling the rental economy. It's long been said that millennials have the power to disrupt and reshape entire industries. Most recently, this effect has been seen in the retail landscape, where millennial spending habits are setting the tone for the market's future. Not only does the millennial generation demand the convenience of making instant purchases, but they can now rent almost anything they want, anytime and anywhere. Visualizing the growth of the rental economy, today's infographic from Adweek takes a deeper look at the consumer goods rental economy and potential long-term impact of this shift in buyer behavior. Although although the current market for the rentals is still in its early stages, the sheer momentum that the industry has gained in the last year is enough to threaten even the largest retailers, forcing them to reconsider their own business models. Top categories in which consumers rent: they rent furniture, gaming systems, clothing. I didn't even know people rent clothing. Must be something different or something new. Tools they rent. That's not uncommon. Technology, jewels, jewelry and accessories, home appliances. A breakdown of consumers who rent instead of buy, by age. So 50 plus, least likely to rent. Gen Xers are more likely to rent at 20%, and millennials are the highest renters out here. So, interested. If you're unmarried, you're more likely to rent than if you're married.
You gotta have a toolbox, man. You can't be out here renting tools, man.
Well, you don't really need it, right? If you only need to put something together once, you may not need to own a $500 tool set from Makita or something like that. Right? Snap on, right? Nobody can afford that. The
Man,
data
everybody
for
in my family got a toolbox.
the data for the visualization above comes from market research companies Lab 42. In a survey of 500 people, they found that 94% of the US population has participated in the sharing economy in one way or another. We talked about shared economics earlier this week. While the sharing economy spotlight typically shines on global behemoths like Airbnb and Uber, the research used to populate this infographic focuses on renting consumer goods for a short period of time as a subsegment of the sharing economy. Offerings within the rental sector have within the rental sector have exploded over the last decade, with furniture being number one, the number one category that consumers rent. According to the infographic, reasons for renting furniture include temporary housing, expensive upfront costs, testing products before committing, hosting events at home, moving into a new home, redesigning a house. Other products that consumers rent, including gaming systems, clothes, tools, and technology. Female renters are more likely to rent furniture, clothes, and jewelry, while male renters are more likely to rent tools and gaming systems. No shit. Renting goods is predominantly done on an as-needed basis. The Lab 42 report states that for clothing, 77% of respondents indicate that they either rent or would rent for a formal event. The end of ownership, despite the common misconception that millennials are driven by emotional needs, the reasons behind why they rent consumer goods are much more pragmatic. Test things before purchasing, need a temporary solution, need an item or a service for a short time frame, less expensive than buying, more convenient than buying. Further, only 6% said that they rent because they do not like owning things. This tells us that the rental economy does not indicate the end of ownership, but rather provides a strategy for consumers to try before they buy. According to the research, very few millennials choose to rent consumer goods because it is better for the environment. However, Nielsen claims that 73% of millennials are willing to pay more money for sustainable offerings impacting both retail and rental industries. As evidence of this, IKEA will test a range of subscription-based leasing offers in all 30 of its markets by 2020 in a bid to appeal to environmentally conscious consumers and boost its sustainability credentials. If IKEA's evolving business model is a success, it could open the floodgates for others to follow suit. In the clothing rental space, brands like Rent the Runway paved the way, but there has also been an explosion of startups entering the market in the last year. Over one example is the monthly subscription service Newly. The company offers consumer access to 100 third-party brands and vintage items. Consumers can borrow up to 6 items a month for $88. Similarly, American Eagle's Style Drop program rents out the latest collections for a flat monthly fee of $49.95. As more companies incorporate short-term rental services into their offerings, more millennials will shift their behavior from buying to renting, disrupting the traditional retail business model as we know it. With that being said, the impact of millennials having it all and owning none of it is yet to be determined. This is very interesting because I never thought about people renting clothes like that, man. I mean, you see a lot of guys in the
Renting
manosphere,
clothes.
yeah, renting, rent some J's and some True Religions just to say you got it, man.
Man, get the absolute fuck out of here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean,
I was be quiet. I ain't even gonna.
I,
can you imagine chicks renting lace fronts?
Why did I was you stole my shit, man? Because I was just about to say that.
Crazy, man. It's getting to
Renting
that point.
wigs.
Yo, this is renting weaves, man. This is gonna be crazy.
Oh my gosh. I didn't think it was gonna be this bad, but I guess it is.
Mike, I know you got a
Renting
tuxedo in
socks.
your closet you didn't take back.
Nah, man. I always pay for all my joints. I never heard of I never heard of this before, man. This is new to me. You got like
I
you
mean,
you be swapping out mad pairs of True Religions, mad pairs of Yeezys and stuff like that, man. And nobody won't know.
man.
Nobody will know. They're like, yo, back to school. Yo, I already did my shopping, fam. I already rented this out. First day of school.
Yo, you,
And
yo,
got
your son stay killing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
man.
man got different pair of pants of the week. What?
Yo,
Shoot.
your thread game gonna be on point. Farrah, we got your hand up. What's good?
Oh, I didn't never. I was talking and never freaking raised it down. My bad.
Yeah,
It's that.
somebody
It's that song with Jake. Go ahead. My bad.
no, I was just gonna say somebody in the chat said rent some drawers. I don't know if you can rent those, man.
Nah, man.
because
Shit.
some of these chicks go commando now. They don't even wear them, man.
Hey, I guess that's what that song meant with Jay-Z and Pharrell. Change clothes.
Change clothes and go.
Yeah,
Change clothes and go.
that's something to think about, man. Renting out tools, man. Ty City, would you rent out your tools to anybody?
No, I don't even let people borrow. I tell people I don't have it.
Oh, you a selfish one. You a selfish one, huh? No, man, this is dope, man. This is something to think about, man. There's a lot of ways you can rent stuff out, man. Might be able to well, I know that people people rent like appliances and stuff like that. Errands and rent a center, they make a killing off of that stuff. So I've never rented anything like that before. Most thing I've rented is a car. I've only had that for maybe like a day or so. So yeah, this is definitely a millennial thing because Gen X's don't really believe in that stuff, man.
Yeah, it just had to be my generation, didn't it?
Yeah, Keep It Techie in the chat says, I remember back in the early 2000s, they were renting rims. Cats was running around with spinners.
Oh yeah. Especially them spinners. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Matter of fact, we still got that around here. I thought that was out of style, I guess, and people still renting.
Wow.
And then they so slick, they'll put them in other cars. So let's say if the people came and like try to take the rims back, they don't see it in the actual car it was registering. So they try to put the rims in somebody else's car.
How would that work, though? How would that work, though? Like, is there a GPS on the wheel?
Nah, it's no. See, because that's when from what I was told when my homeboy used to do it, and he was like, man, he said all you do is you go in, whatever. Like, let's say for instance, since people in Atlanta like to put these rims on these Dodge Chargers and Challengers, they'll put them on their Challengers, but what they'll do is let's say if they can't make the payment, because sometimes they pay weekly or monthly, they'll take the rims off. And like if they got a baby mama or somebody, they'll put it on their car, put the actual rim, I guess the modified or rim that it came with the Charger or Challenger, put that back on there, and motherfuckers come looking for it. Shit, it's almost like it's gone or some shit. So I was like, man, that got to be the most hood nigga shit I done. Man.
Yeah.
So this is for real.
What you say?
Renting rims is for real.
Yo, that's always been the case. Yeah, renting rims has always been.
Yeah.
My mind is totally blown.
Well, if you got it, you got to pull up to the strip club in style, man. That's how they coming up now.
Could you
Mhm.
imagine people like renting Volks or something like that for the racetrack?
I don't think that would be the case. I think, I think the enthusiast community is a little bit different than the baller community. Um, Enthusiasts really, if you got fake wheels on your car, man, fake rims, man, you will get called out. You're gonna get clowned. But
Facts.
if you rent your wheels, man, at some point you got to give them back, man. So you got to give them back in mint condition. So you can't have like curb rash or anything like that on them, man. It's a little bit more difficult to actually trade back in because nobody really wants to pay full price, or not pay full price, but to borrow something that's already been jacked up before. At some point, it will get jacked up.
Yeah, but them the rented wheels was never like the high end stuff anyways. Like the wheels they
It
had
really
in the
wasn't. They
window.
were like the mid tier at best.
Nah, it was just
Like the mid tier rims at
Stereo
best.
shop, you just showed up. Whatever was in the window, you rented that.
That's
Exactly.
But I mean, that's not a bad business model. I mean, like, hey, somebody's doing a car show and you want to rent them some Volks for the weekend. I mean,
All right, let me get to this next article. This one's from Business Insider. Should you pay off your mortgage early or invest? We did the math to find out which nets a greater return. Debt can often be thrown in your side on the path to building wealth, but it's not all bad. Still, if you're not a homeowner with a mortgage, you've likely weighed the decision to pay it off early if you can afford to. It's a worthy goal to be free and clear of all debt, but is it the right choice if you're trying to optimize every dollar? That's a common question. Brian Fry, a certified financial planner who founded Safe Lending Financial, gets from his clients, and the answer really depends on the specifics of the situation. Generally, we said the biggest factor in deciding whether to pay off a mortgage early or invest your extra cash from a windfall, salary rise, or some other source is the interest rate. If you project a higher rate of return for your investments than your mortgage's interest rate, then you should invest the savings, Fry said. But if you project your mortgage's interest rate to outperform your investments, then you should pay off the mortgage. You should pay the mortgage off aggressively. Still, if you determine that the interest rate on your mortgage is higher than what you earn on investments, you may want to consider refinancing to secure a lower rate. Fry said. In fact, refinancing can be a good option whether or not you ultimately decide to pay your mortgage aggressively. But Fry said it's also crucial to consider how far you are from retirement, how long you plan to stay in the home, whether you have other high interest debt, the possibility of tax deductions, and the status of your emergency fund and retirement savings. There are non-financial factors to think about as well. It's really important to have a good understanding of what you're trying to accomplish before determining the best course of action, he said. A fee-only certified financial planner can help you plan for your unique financial situation and reach your financial goals. To help illustrate the debate between paying off your mortgage early versus investing, we asked Fry to run a simulation. The hypothetical: a homeowner just got a raise that will net them an additional $24,000 a year after taxes. They plan to stay at this job, and it's unlikely they'll get any more raises or cost of living adjustments. This figure was used for the purposes of this calculation. A smaller raise or windfall would yield similar results. They have an established emergency fund and no other debt, and they are already maxing out their 401k and IRA. They plan to stay in their home forever and retire in 15 years at 65. Their initial mortgage balance was $400,000 on a 30-year fixed rate loan with an interest rate of 5.884%. They are 15 years into their mortgage and have a remaining balance of $282,221. If they refinance to a fixed 15-year fixed mortgage, their interest rate would be 3.19%. Refinancing costs are estimated to be $6,000 for simplicity. Generally, refinancing costs are 1.5% to 4% of the remaining mortgage balance. Their nest egg is diversified and they are looking to make the best financial decision about how to use the extra income to maximize their wealth. Do they use this extra money to pay off their mortgage more aggressively or invest more aggressively? The calculation. Fry used Right Capital, a financial planning software, to calculate how much the homeowner would have in a taxable investment account in 15 years using a straight line analysis. The variables are whether they refinance their mortgage and whether they put their additional income and savings from refinancing, if available, into an investment fund or put it toward their loan balance. Fry used the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, which has a long-term annual return of 5.38%, according to JP Morgan's estimates. He said it's important to remember that the market doesn't go up by the same percentage every year. Some years offer better returns, while others may have negative returns. If the homeowner refinances their mortgage and invests what they save on monthly payments plus $24,000 a year, in 15 years, they will have paid off their mortgage and have an investment account balance of $623,701. If the homeowner does not refinance their mortgage and invest the $24,000 a year, in 15 years, they will have paid off their mortgage and have an investment account balance of $533,099. Interesting. Pay mortgage more aggressively. If the homeowner refinances their mortgage and uses the amount they save on monthly payments plus the $24,000 additional income to pay it down more aggressively and then invest, in 15 years, they will have paid off their mortgage and have an investment account balance of $599,662. If the homeowner does not refinance their mortgage and uses the $24,000 additional income to pay that down sooner and then invest, in 15 years, they will have paid off their mortgage and have an investment account balance of $572,449. Fry's recommendations: best action, refinance and invest more aggressively, because a 15-year fixed mortgage with a rate of 3.19% is much lower than the market's expected rate of return. Second best action, refinance and pay the mortgage aggressively. If the homeowner doesn't agree with the long-term investment return estimates and would rather act more conservatively, they can pay off the mortgage and then invest and still come out okay. Third best action, don't refinance and pay the mortgage more aggressively. The homeowner will be debt-free 99 months sooner by putting in an extra $24,000 towards the loan balance. Worst action, don't refinance, don't invest, and spend the extra cash instead. If the homeowner did not refinance and decide to spend the money, they would not have extra retirement savings if that's their goal. Second worst action, don't refinance and still invest the extra cash A 5.84% interest rate on the loan is higher than the market's expected rate of return. If the homeowner is locked into a higher interest rate, it's best to pay off the debt first. This is pretty interesting. I want to go. Do you have anything you want to add? Anything you've heard? All right, sounds like Nagone it's not available. So let me go to
What you think about it, Mike?
well, my thing is I agree with the assessment of refinancing and paying it off quicker because the interest rate is going to be much lower. and is lower than the market's return on investment, I would probably also consider reinvesting into a second property.
See,
And,
yeah.
yeah,
See that?
yeah. Let me just finish this up real quick. I would probably look at investing into a second property. Me personally, I would get like a vacant lot, man, and open up a cannabis grow, cannabis, what do you call that? A greenhouse, and grow cannabis out of it, and let that be my investment. And then use the proceeds from that investment to pay off some of the refinancing of the mortgage. Go ahead, Ty.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much along the lines of what I was about to say. I was wanted to address somebody from the chat. He pretty much said if I can't buy it cash, I don't want it or something like that. And you know, I used to think that way, and you know, I was able to refinance my first property, and I got a second property. You know what I'm saying? A bigger house. I'm actually moving into the small house and renting the big one out because I could have a larger ROI on it. You know, and I got the 2 vacant lots. I still hold 2 vacant lots, and I see residual income from that. You know, you can actually use the house. Like you can use it. Like you don't. You don't have to. It's not a burden. Only if you look at it that way and you treat it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. You really have to look at what your individual situation looks like, and what are some of your goals. Because to rush and pay your house off and do that, it could leave you a little short. The market could may not be in the best place at that while. It might be a downturn. There are a lot of different things you have to look at. So you got to play each scenario situation, which I think is best for that person. I generally think having a bit more cash on hand, if you have, to take advantage of other investment opportunities, however that comes up, tends to be the best type of strategy. So whatever's going to leave you with the most cash in hand is what I believe is the option that one should take. And you have to look at each individual, each situation separately. That's why, this investment advisor, I actually thought his advice and what he was looking at was actually quite good.
Barney Blaze, you have anything you want to add to this?
Hey, good evening, guys.
What's going on, brother?
How you doing? Barney Blaze.
Hey, man, I like this article. I just bought a house earlier this year. This is actually my 4th house. So,
yeah, man, that's what's up.
So just kind of give me a few ideas what to do. Now, actually, I did something kind of foolish last year. I actually had another house. I sold it while working with my cousin. And looking back, I wish I would have kept it and just kept renting it out because I was actually on a 15-year loan. I could have had the thing paid off. But like Nagone said, my personal situation at the time, I just wasn't thinking clearly. But now, I won't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, I think I think when it comes to like black people, man, they really do need a CFP, man. Somebody who can see the market better than you can.
Absolutely.
It just makes more sense. I see a lot of guys out there trying to, dip and dive and dip and dab and stuff like that, man. And they end up, losing in the end. I've seen a lot of dope boys go through car after car after car, wheel after wheel after wheel, gold chain after gold chain after gold chain, man. And in the end, got nothing.
Well, you talk to a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys think they're geniuses. A lot of these guys actually think they're smart.
Yeah.
When in fact, at the end of the day, they're dumb as fuck. But yet they think they're they think they're Albert Einstein, and they're nothing close to it. But that's part of what you got going on. Too many guys walking around thinking they're smarter than they are, and then that's the issue. But if you have people who are willing to listen and they have money at hand that they can actually use, because money is a tool. It's not something to spend, or you're not some female running around saying, "Oh, I got all this money, I can buy all this jewelry."
You dominated. You dominated.
Utilizing credit is the best skill that I've learned in my life, man. Utilizing credit.
Gotta utilize money as a tool. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead, brother. You saying credit? Go ahead. You saying utilizing credit is great?
Yeah,
I would agree.
Utilizing credit and understanding that you don't have to pay for everything. Like other people's money is better.
Yep.
If you got people paying for your property and they're covering that for you, that's always an advantage. Always.
Building equity.
You're building equity. Oh yeah, they're helping you build equity, and you, in fact, are actually, in so many respects, saving money. It's the best thing going.
Yeah, you got to be down with OPP.
Right. I got a question for Ty City, actually.
Yeah,
and you might be able to help me out. But so I said I just bought this house this year, and right across from where I live, there's a set of condos, and I'm considering purchasing one of those condos and renting it out.
A good idea. I can tell you that right now. Good idea.
But you know, my only
just see what the interest price for the condo is.
Right now,
you said it's two condos. They connected. Is it like a duplex?
No, it's a whole building, but basically it looks like apartments. But basically, each of the apartments, I guess, is for sale. So like one of them going for 160, the other one's going for 130.
Sound like they converted it.
Yeah.
What's the area like? And are you in a
the area is real nice. The reason I chose where I live now because of the school district. This is the good school district. I'm in the Virginia area, so okay. I chose it because of where all the good schools are. So
good schools. A lot of government employees.
Yeah, near a pretty big military base out where I'm at.
Good idea. Good idea to pick that up. Good idea to pick it up.
Yeah, you can't miss on a multifamily unless it's just ragged out all the way.
But even if it is, man, it's still a rehab. So.
Oh yeah. I think I'm gonna probably go through with like I told y'all before. I was looking at this. I was looking at a duplex by this college, and they still lowering the price on it.
Yeah. You just got to take a look. They got to take a look at the market, and I don't know what percentage of money you would put down, but on something like that, I would put down as much money as you can, get that thing out, and then start to rent that thing out as fast as possible, and start to get some return on that, so you're not paying a very high note, and you can amortize that out over the next few years at a nice profit if you get at the right price. If you get at the right price, but definitely look to cop that if you can.
Right. I'm waiting to see if this price is going to drop at all.
Yeah.
With the impending recession, I don't want to buy at the top of the market.
The beauty of it is when you're renting it out. I mean, whether the recession hit or not, the rent in this area, in the Dallas area, the rent wasn't really affected by the recession. It was pretty steady.
Yeah, especially Thai City like Section 8. So.
No, I would never in my life, bro. That's like going in wrong.
Thai City be over there in Oak Cliff.
No, I'll be in the. Hey, you know what? Hey, you know what? I got my 2 lots is in South Dallas.
Oh, word.
Yeah, man.
They don't.
Right there.
They don't get you for like. Go ahead.
The house next to it is pretty much condemned. I just found out a way where the city will like pretty much give it to me, but I'm waiting some stuff out.
Yeah, because you just pay the back taxes on it, and they'll give it to you.
Yeah. Plus, they need that. It's gonna need to be demolished.
Yeah. It's just a matter of what they're gonna allow you to permit. To build on it, so they may not let you do anything in some areas, unless it's consistent with the zoning laws and in the neighborhood. I forget what they call it, but yeah. Go ahead.
Got a question. So all you have to do with some of these lots in some of these cities, you just have to pay the back taxes and it's yours.
Yeah, a lot of lots, man. You have to remember back in the 60s, man, during the civil rights movement, a lot of houses burned down and they were never rebuilt. So a lot of those properties had been sitting there for so long that city never accrued any profit from it because nobody was paying the taxes. It was cheaper for the landlord to just abandon it. And
Yeah, they have fines stacked up on them too from different code violations.
yeah,
They
liens
do.
on it. They have a lot of liens on it.
But the city,
Mm.
and a lot of those properties are in receivership and everything else like that. So, or have been, and then a lot of stuff has been actually been turned back to the city. So you can cut some nice deals on that stuff. They would like to move it if they can.
Yeah,
And that,
Exactly.
that's how
you
they
only
move.
have to pay 10% of the
Yep,
taxes of the back taxes on it, and they'll say you can have it.
that's right. They're trying to get
Wow. Oh
that.
shit.
They're
Yeah.
trying to, because it's costing the city money. They would
Yeah.
much rather have you in there developing that property
Mhm.
where they're getting a certain level of property tax on it, where it's an income-based situation for the city now, as opposed to them sitting there carrying that as a net liability on their on the city's balance sheets. So
Yeah.
of course they're going to look to get you in there to get it right. That's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah. Property tax actually pays for your public schools, so they have
It
a vested interest in
pays,
making sure that gets sold off the books.
pays for your schools and a lot of things, but it's primarily does pay for your schools. So
Mhm.
that's
Uh,
key.
So
they
you
got
figure
Dante.
the accrued rate was like $2,000 a year in taxes over 30 years. That lot's been sitting there for 30 years, man. Um, you're talking something like probably close to 100 grand, whatever the public utility companies want back on it, water and stuff like that, liens that were never paid. 10% of that, man, you're gonna cough up a good 10 grand, man. You're gonna come up well.
Dante asked, so what do you actually do with the lots? I maintain them. I pay taxes on them. It's in an area that I'm pretty sure is about to be gentrified. The city planning pretty much got a question mark on the area, so I'm just waiting for a cash out.
Mhm.
I wouldn't build anything on them right now. It wouldn't be worth it.
No,
Mm.
you just got to keep it clean because you don't want code enforcement coming by, and writing you
Yeah.
tickets, citations.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, if you can't put a fence around it, man, put a fence around it.
And what's usually like a best website or a best source to go to try to find some of these lots? Or we just have to go up to like the
Hit the streets,
city.
drive around.
No, you did no. There's a directory. Every city has a directory for vacant parcels, what they call parcels. And if they're considered blighted, the city will have it listed, and they'll tell you what the value is on it and what the taxes is and things like all types of metrics that's tied in with it. Some of it um, may have a name to it, but the name is probably attached to a person that is probably deceased.
Okay.
And once the city considers it blighted, they take control over it. So it's all listed on their site, and then it goes up for auction.
Okay. We'll definitely keep a lookout on it. I've been try to look at some of these land down here on this little realtor app, but I think I'm gonna have to expand more than that because Zillow ain't telling me shit. So
Yeah, it
Yeah,
depends. It depends. Yeah, go ahead, Tasha.
realtor is better than
okay.
is this the best, most up to date one you can get your hands on. But I mean, just people, if it's online, it's too late. Somebody already got the markup on it. You
Pretty
have to
much.
you got to get in there and start digging around with the realtors and getting cool with people, man. Find you a mentor and show you the ropes and whatnot.
Mhm.
I'm probably gonna have to start going to some of those seminars, those real estate seminars as well when they be coming to the city.
Now you got to find somebody
Yeah.
who's connected on the inside. They usually know what's
Oh,
moving and what's not. those seminars are good too, but you know, and for what we're talking about,
Mhm.
I know I forget the website's name right now, but that's how I found out about the 100,000 vacant lots across black neighborhoods across America that are available for farming, urban farming.
Okay. So
That's why.
it's best to go to. So it's best to go talk to a realtor personally to try to get the up and scoop.
Do what Ty City said. Go to Realtor.
Mhm.
I think there's an app for that, right, Ty?
Yeah,
Well, that's the
Realtor is
app
the
that
app.
I'm on now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
I
one you
have that
want to
app. That's
use
why I said.
because I mean, Zillow and all the rest of them, they just have a whole bunch of old listings and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Realtor is constantly updated through the MPLS system.
Yeah. I've been using them for the last freaking month because, like I said, Zillow ain't showing me shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
Zillow's
like I
whack.
said, you want to get with a real estate investor that's on the ground. They that's how you're gonna get the best deals because if it's posted online, that means somebody you too late.
Mm-hmm.
You're too late.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
All right,
why post it online? My bad. Go ahead to the next article. My bad.
all right. All right, this one's from Business Insider. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just read the caption. Millennials know their retirement won't look like mom and dad's, and they are already planning ahead. Millennials have their work cut out for them when it comes to prepping for retirement. A new Wells Fargo survey of 2,700 US workers and 1,000 retirees uncovered a huge distinction between how baby boomers pay for retirement and how their kids plan to pay for their own in a few decades. The survey ultimately found that younger generations are beginning to save for retirement much earlier than those before them. Today's retirees started saving around age 40 on average, while boomers still working started around age 36. Gen Xers at age 31 and millennials at age 25. The average age of retirees surveyed was 70. In 2019, baby boomers are ages 55 to 73, according to Pew Research Center. The Wells Fargo survey found that the vast majority of retirees live Social Security income 66% or a pension plan 22%. Just 5% of the retirees say their main source of income is a 401k, IRA, or other personal savings vehicles. But things are changing fast. Among baby boomers still working, a total of 60% say they'll primarily use Social Security or pension income to pay for expenses when they retire, while 22% say they'll use personal savings. Further, about 37% of Gen Xers and only 25% of millennials plan to fund their retirement mostly with Social Security or a pension. 45% of millennials who I gotta mute everybody. Further, about 37% of Gen Xers and 25% of millennials plan to fund their retirement mostly with Social Security or a pension. 45% of millennials and 41% of Gen Xers say their personal retirement savings account will be their largest source of income in retirement. Millennials and Gen Xers are smart to plan for retirement, assuming they won't get much help from the government or their employer. Reports show the Social Security Trust will be underfunded as soon as next year, and pensions plans have been on decline for years. But despite being closer to retirement age than millennials, Gen Xers are at the same level when it comes to financial preparedness. In a separate survey from Insider and Morning Consult, only 37% of Gen Xers are actively contributing to a retirement account compared to 37% of millennials. Despite a three-decade span between the oldest Gen Xers and youngest millennials, the Wells Fargo survey found that the same share of millennials and Gen Xers, 14%, have between $25,000 and $100,000 saved in personal retirement accounts. I don't know. The title is kind of confusing. It says won't look like mom and dad. If you're in ADOS, man, you don't have a dad. Anybody have anything you want to add to that?
A lot of your mom and dads ain't got good retirements too out here. It seems like it.
Mhm.
Right now, I see what my mom and dad are doing. They're separated, but yeah, my dad, he's pretty much surviving on Social Security, which is not much. My mother, she's in a little bit better position because she's retired military like myself. But yeah, but they didn't plan ahead for any of this stuff.
I kind of see it with I think my dad, he's gonna be straight because he's been on a trucker driver for a good little minute. But I know my mom, 25 years in the police department. So, and they told her she only got to do 5 years working for the feds. So, she's pretty much in a good position.
Yeah, I think if you have pensions, you're gonna be all right. But if you don't have pensions, and you're looking to retire, you're gonna have to, Social Security, and you're gonna have to have either a business or real estate or a land or property, which is gonna have constant income coming in for you. That's essentially what you're gonna need, and that's how this game is gonna be played. Many boomers are okay, but a lot, some aren't. But if you have pensions and stuff, that'll help you out. But for this younger generation and so forth that's coming up for retirement, I know they're not even thinking about it yet, but it's going to be dicey. So I think the boomer generation is the last generation that's going to be halfway okay in their older years.
Yeah, the thing is, Zennials and Millennials won't even see a pension. I think pensions start with Gen Xers.
Yeah, I think pretty much so. I think the older Gen Xers, because Gen Xers, the younger ones are very, very close to Millennials. So it's a tough game unless there's some fundamental governmental changes that are going to help people out, because we're gonna be dealing with a much more elderly crew coming up in the next 20 years. So that's gonna be tough, and there's a lot going on, and the only way that's really you're really going to have any kind of, this is the difficult part about it, and this is what the government sees. That's why with these various budget offices and all that, and looking at what's really happening, you're going to have to bring in even a lot more immigrants. What a lot of people don't understand is, this is a terrible thing to say for some people that want to hear, but you damn near should walk up and damn near for any Xer who's going to have a retirement or have your Social Security, you better walk up and kiss every Mexican you see on the mouth, because at the end of the day, these are the guys that are paying for your retirement, of which is which is going to be further and further more the case. So all of this, I don't want no immigrants, and these the square-headed mayonnaise folks over here talking at the side of their necks. They don't understand that these are the people that are going to be coming in paying for that. So
But I mean, the goon. Look what GE just did.
GE is talking about they're not paying any more. They're paying any more pensions. But then again,
They froze 20,000 pensions.
GE is a zombified company. They're getting, they're basically a walking zombie. They got blown out in the crash, and they've been walking around on life support ever since. So they're walking around, almost with a half of a brain, and you're pumping a lot of blood into them, so they're still bleeding out. You're wasting a lot on them. I think GE should just go down. The government should pick up some of that and redisperse that. But that's my view of it. That's my view of a lot of that stuff that was going on.
Yeah,
But,
Tony Macio's in the chat. Shout out to Tony Macio. He says, what about IRAs? My position on IRAs, you had to get in early and hope that your employer actually match or somewhat match your IRA contributions. I think we should be actually planning out our children's IRAs pretty early too. Actually transferring that stuff over. If you have an IRA, man, and anything happens to you, man, in your will, man, that should, should make sure that they have access to that as well, to help build their own IRAs, because we can't. Social Security is not guaranteed, man.
Oh, OG Tony over here. I told him about y'all too as well. To come in. I think this will be a channel for him. So appreciate you coming, Tony.
Yeah, he's welcome to get on the panel too. Yeah,
Oh,
so that's
yeah,
my
he should
position
come
on.
on.
Yeah, that's my position on IRAs. There's, you got two factors: IRAs, traditional and Roth. Roth is usually what everybody goes with now. Traditionals is what most employers would actually offer.
Yeah, I mean, IRAs are cool, and you can start one up yourself.
Yep.
As opposed to to the government doing that. But it's all about savings. It's all about if you have the money, you constantly have to put it in. Yep. and prepare for your retirement. So for the younger generation, yeah, it's there. Will the corporations and stuff be doing IRAs? I mean, we'll be doing pensions and retirement plans. Well, the well-run ones will. The ones that are not well run, like GE, with respect to GE Capital, that tore them out the frame.
You talking about DE or GE?
Well, we can talk about them both if you want to. but from the standpoint of GE, they're finished, and they've been finished for quite a while, unfortunately.
Bro, I'm telling you, man, you try to tell people, but it's like nobody listening, man.
I mean, there's some hard, core kind of stuff that has to go down, and immigration is going to pay for a lot of your retirement plans for senior citizens coming up, and a lot of people just don't understand what they're doing. They just don't understand it. But I do, but many others, they just don't, and they let the political folks run game on them, and they're screwing them out, trumping them a set. Your ass ain't.
That's what I'm saying. You see a juggernaut like Sears. Do you see a juggernaut like GE? You know what I'm saying? Just nobody safe out here, man.
But if you got 75.
I got 75 on it, Tony.
Hey, click the link, Tony. Come on in, man.
Yeah, this is the last article we got to cover anyways, and then we'll open it up for roundtable discussion. All right, this one is from CNBC.com. To retire at 65, millennials will need to save nearly half of their paycheck. If you think the standard recommendation of putting 15% of your paycheck toward retirement is impossible to achieve, get ready for an even bigger hurdle. At least one retirement expert thinks that number should be much higher. Millennials should aim to set aside nearly half of their income for the future, according to Olivia S. Mitchell, a professor of insurance risk management and business economic and public policy, and executive director of Wharton's Pension Research Council at the University of Pennsylvania. If you want to live off even half of your final salary in retirement, you need to save 40% of your income over the next 30 years, she says. That calculation, which is based on academic research from an MIT economist, takes into account a few assumptions. The biggest is that you want to retire at 65. That's not much of a stretch. About a third of millennials say they expect to retire between ages 65 and 69, according to a recent T. Rowe Price survey. However, 43% of millennials say they actually expect to retire earlier. Yet about half of millennials are planning to contribute less than 6% of their income to a 401k this year. The T. Rowe Price survey found only about 1 in 5 is currently saving more than 15% of their income. The second major assumption is that investment returns over the next few decades aren't going to match the roughly 10% historical returns Americans have enjoyed previously. Most people are not told by financial advisors that their future returns will likely be much lower than in the past, and their future taxes will likely be much higher, Mitchell tells CNBC Make It. Other experts agree. The economists at investing giant Vanguard predict that over the next 10 years, annual US stock market returns will likely average 3% to 5%. When you factor in inflation, which luckily Vanguard predicts will be lower, below 2%, the real rate of return is expected to be around 3%. Morningstar Investment Management predicts an even more meager return, 1.8% over the next 10 years for US stocks before adjusting for inflation. Meanwhile, perhaps the most pessimistic outlook comes from Boston-based asset management firm GMO, which expects real returns of 3.6 or negative 3.6% for large cap stocks and negative 1% for small cap stocks. It's also worth noting that the 40% retirement savings rate calculation does not take into account Social Security's looming shortfall. If Congress does nothing, the agency funds will be able to pay out about 80% by 2035. But many experts are betting that reforms will happen. If you can't increase your savings, you need to change the math. If saving almost half of your salary is not an option, what can you do to make sure your retirement fund is on track? You need to play with the math you have control over. Market returns may be out of your control, but when you plan to retire, is more manageable. In general, Americans, especially millennials, will need to work longer and claim Social Security later. Benefits from Social Security are 76% if you claim at age 70 versus 62, which can substitute for a lot of extra savings, Mitchell says. If you're able, don't retire, Mitchell says. If you keep working, do so. If you can keep working, do so. If you can't work full time, work part time. Every little bit helps. With the current unemployment rate the lowest it's been in decades, Mitchell adds that this is a great time for older folks to get jobs. Of course, it does depend on a potential employer's skill set. People should continue investing in their skills well beyond 45 or 50, she says. If you aren't computer trained or have rusty computer skills, go out and learn the skills and keep sharpening them to be employable, Mitchell says. And don't forget community colleges and other groups that are keen to train you. In addition to your job skills, you also need to maintain your health. Just over a third of Americans are forced into retirement sooner than they planned, many because of health setbacks. The most important thing is to invest in your health when you're young and middle age, Mitchell says, adding that a healthy lifestyle includes not smoking or drinking too much and getting a lot of sleep. Investing in yourself, in your older self when you're younger, she says. Beyond simply planning to work longer, Mitchell says more Americans may need to consider purchasing an annuity as they get older. Although these products have been criticized by many experts for their high fees and opaque sales practices, Mitchell says she prefers deferred annuities because they are one of the few products available that take some of the uncertainty out of the equation and provide some protection to those who are living longer. These are true longevity insurance and will help generate a steady income when you're probably not able to work any longer, she says. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought Nagone 11 wrote this article. Get your mind right, get your body right, right? That's kind of where the article is pointing into. Anyone else have anything you want to add to this?
I'm epically screwed.
Well, I think, I always think that the Caribbean and the continent, man, missing out on big opportunities on melanated people retiring in their areas. You would think that they would have financial vehicles set up in place where you can send your money into their local national banks, and allow your money to accrue and be able to retire in their country rather than to retire here, because your money would stretch further there, but it would also boost the economy there. You take a thousand ADOS people who need to retire and send them over there into concentrated areas, they can boost the economy overnight. But you would think, while still maintaining a healthy lifestyle, a decent lifestyle, you would think that they would think on that level, but that doesn't seem to be the case. At least to my knowledge, I don't know. I haven't been there yet.
Hey, Mike, I'll say this: when it comes to the health piece, working in the med field, your average American is just not a very healthy individual. We eat poor. The kind of foods we eat too much food is one thing. We don't work out enough. We have a very transient lifestyle. We spend too much time either sitting down behind desks, we're driving every place. So that in itself is one thing that's definitely, breaking folks down. But due to the technology, we are living longer with more of these health ailments. And I think that's what's really eating into a lot of the economics here.
Mm-hmm. DE Raptor, you have just joined us. What's going on? I think DE is having more porridge at the moment. So
You're right, bro. I'm trying to eat here. I just came back from my son's football game. I'm just listening in.
all right. We'll go to
Hey, Mike, I missed the end of that article. I was just taking care of something here. What did you say about mind right and body right? What happened?
No, I said if I didn't know any better, I would think that Nagone 11 had wrote the article, because a lot of what you say in your mantra is actually outlined in the article itself. Get your mind right, get your body right.
Things to live by. I live by this. That's why I'm not telling people, Jack. This is what I do. I think we should all be thinking this way, because probably will help you in the long run. That's just what I think.
Yeah, invest it into your body early rather than later.
Yeah, because your body will betray you if you don't take care of it. I mean, bodies are designed for long-term use, not abuse. But if you work it right, it'll serve you well. Anyway.
Yeah, I haven't been sick, man. I can't remember the last time I was sick. Maybe a few years ago, man. But outside of that, I've been generally healthy.
And you're in the gym, aren't you? I've called you a few times, and you've been working out. You're in the gym.
Yeah, I'm getting my sets in, man. I'm posting them up on the workout today on the community tab. You see it on here.
That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about, man. So we need to. It's very important. I mean, I know a lot of us don't take stock in it. Which is since we're having a financial conversation, you need to take stock also in your body.
No, I have to invest in my body out here being in these trucks, man. I'm seeing too many of these truck drivers with these beer bellies. You know what I'm talking about?
Nah, they're not beer bellies. They're just pregnant, man.
Yeah, a lot of that. And they're eating, they're not exercising, and then they're looking. I mean, I go to some of the malls and I just look at the people. I look at their bodies, and I say, who do I can look at who's in shape and who isn't? And it's a smaller percentage of people being in shape. You got a lot of big bellies and guys walking around with big titties and stuff. And it's
at some point they'll probably get those things pierced too.
Hey, you know what? I work with a bunch of truck drivers, and man, they be on the road so long. Sometimes you can just see the fluid build up in their legs from just like the circulation.
Not
man,
good,
bro.
Not good.
Man. And then I tell them, man, them truck stops, man, it be setting dudes up, man. Ain't nothing but fast foods, freaking McDonald's, Hardee's, and then they, Subways everywhere, but they suspect as well. But I mean, like, it set truck drivers up, man, for the get up.
Yeah, it's a tough game. It's just tough enough to stay healthy out here, I think. So you have to really put a lot of time and effort. You have to put at least some time and effort into it, and it's work. So this is where we're at. This is what it is, Ty City. Is what it is, baby.
The way you be wrapping stuff up, fam. So, niggas out here got titties, and that's just where we at.
It's true though. It's very
It's
true.
a-
You see,
you
you
walk
see that in the
around, I see-
manosphere. You see that in the manosphere. You see guys, haven't been on dates since, the collapse of the Berlin Wall, collapse of the Soviet
Oh my
Union.
god!
You got big belly, big titty motherfuckers walking around. It's just kind of crazy. I mean, but that's
They just roll around with their shirt off and shit. Like,
Oh yeah, and they advertise running around shirtless, man. Crazy.
it very interesting. Very interesting.
No traps.
No traps, no rhomboids.
Yeah, man. You can go to any playground, in your local neighborhoods, man, and get some calisthenics in, man, for a half hour.
Just even a walk. I mean, I was listening. I tell you, who's a great thing. I almost say this, and I'm out. People should just go back to listen to. Some folks may be aware of them. Some folks may not be, but old videos, they play them here on YouTube, of Jack LaLanne. You guys need to check that old cat out. Now he died at about 97 years old. That's about how old he was, I think, when he passed on. But this guy was a fitness guru of the 50s and the 60s, and really kind of brought, fitness into the world that we're in right now. I say he was definitely the father of it on television. But he talks a lot about just doing basic movements and just moving around and staying healthy. And this was a barrel-chested, small waist, broad-thighed dude back in the 50s, and the women just used to turn him on because they just used to look at him. That's what they used to do. This in the 50s. When the husbands were out, they were turning this dude on, getting off on him, exercising. And he really had some very good philosophies, and he just talked about just walking. Just getting up and just walking around a half hour for a day would just really get you back would get you back into some level of fitness. And he was so right about that, and he did talk about, cutting down your sugars and so forth. And, and eating very small meals, very small, low sugar meals, a day, and then doing your walk, and you'll start to lose weight. He had all this stuff down, which bodybuilders and all that use today. Certainly as ways of losing weight and thinning out for competitions. He was dead on this stuff 60 years ago. So yeah.
He had a juicer as well. I think the Jack LaLanne juicer.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He talked about juicing and all that. And, he was dead on it, man. Like I said, this guy was he was a super beast. This guy looked great. Talked. Was fast talking guy, but a lot of fun to listen to, and his philosophies were dead on it. So you don't have to go in the gym, throw up a lot of weight, and sit there for 2 hours and all that. You hear people talking that, they're bullshitting you. The bottom line, very simply, is you go half hour a day, walk. People, I don't have the time. Yes, you do. You have a half hour. You're sitting on your ass half of the time, talking on the phone, bullshitting around. So of course,
sitting on the live stream for 8 hours.
Yeah. and all those kind of stuff, folks. Of course they do. It's just they don't want to do it. But it's worth, because it'll pay off in the end. So that's I gotta be done. But I see too many big men walking around, big bellies, mulking over their pants, and titties, cold swinging, and it's like, what is this? this ain't gonna serve you well, bro. In the long run, ain't gonna serve you well. Is what it is.
Rick Ross can get away with that, man, because that's a part of his character makeup. But the average guy can't walk around with tattoos and titties like that.
I heard even Rick Ross saying how he was losing weight and he was on this diet and he was getting thin and all that. He did
CrossFit. He did CrossFit. There's a whole YouTube channel dedicated to that. I think they call it Rossfit. Rossfit is what they call it now.
All that fat and he was carrying
Part
around
of the
the
deal
doctor.
he had,
yeah, Rick, that's all.
with Reebok.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. You're right. Yes, you're right.
Lyric.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's pretty good.
And after he got dropped, that's when he dropped his weight.
Yeah. But you take a look at it. That wasn't healthy for you. So anyway.
Yeah, real basic stuff, man. I post a workout a day on the community tab, man. Anybody can do it, either with weights or without it. You don't need a whole lot of money to spend on equipment to do all this stuff, man. Get yourself a skip rope. I recommend those, man. I use a cross rope from Jerk Rope Dudes on YouTube. It's weighted. You can adjust the ropes on there from half a pound to up to 2.5 pounds. Can't beat that for 30 minutes a day. So
You ain't flipping a tire?
oh yeah, I flip tires too. I flip tires, man. Not everybody has them, man. The only type of tires they got around here, man, those old Toyos that are all beat up, man. Cats ain't
Toyo
flipping those.
Yo.
Said Toyo tires.
Yeah, that's and they use these old Chinese tires, man.
May pops.
Yeah. M-Pow, that's what they call them.
Yeah, May pops.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, man, let me close this down, and then we're gonna fire up an open chat. All right, so thank you all for joining us, man. Hit the like button and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. And just an FYI, we are not certified financial planners. Make sure you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net and look up one in your area.